Time machines are something that many of us wished we had access to. For the younger crowd who never got to grow up with the sight of steam thundering over the road, the best we can do is try to replicate the glory days of railroading on our own layouts. Today on the Miniature Models podcast, we speak with renowned modeler Norm Charbonneau, who has captured the heyday of the Pennsylvania Railroad on his beautiful three-rail scale layout. What does it take to get into three-rail scale? What are some of Norm's favorite tricks and tips? And what projects are coming down the line? All this and a whole lot more. So get your ticket from the station, grab a seat, and make sure you don't miss the train. Board! Good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to episode 86 of the Miniature Models podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Schwartz, and with me as always are my fellow co-hosts, Matt Z and Johnny. Guys, how are you tonight?
We're doing pretty good, man. I'm excited for this episode. We got a really good one for you guys lined up tonight. It's going to be great to talk to Norm.
It is nice to be back in the studio recording again after the very long hiatus that we took after the last show. But very excited to be back and talking with everybody, and even more so with tonight's guest. How about you, John? How do you feel, my man?
I am feeling fantastic. I can echo your sentiment. I'm super glad to be back too. We appreciate all your patience while we just got through some stuff over the holiday season, but we are back and we are coming in strong here for the beginning of the year. And unfortunately, Matt R. could not be with us tonight. He had some other obligations he had to attend to this evening, but fear not, because we have our fantastic favorite resident guest host, Mr. Sid of Sid's Trains here. How are you, Sid?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be on. Thanks as always for having me on, and I'm excited to chat with you all, and of course chat with our guest this evening.
Yes, indeed. And our guest this evening, we are extremely honored to have him on. He is a fan of the podcast, and we appreciate him very much. He needs no introduction. It is Norm Charbonneau. Norm, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, pretty good, you guys. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to talking to you guys tonight.
We are honored to have you on the show, and God, this is going to be an excellent show. I'm so excited.
Cool.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So yeah, let's just kind of go around and check in with what everybody's been doing. This is kind of the current events show and tell portion of the show here. Let's see here. Who should we start with? Well, Norm, let's go ahead and start with you. What have you been up to, sir, just recently? What's been going on?
Well, I did a little bit of YouTube, and lately I got caught up in some projects, so I got a few YouTubes out. But I'm actually sitting at my workbench right now, and I'm looking at some projects in various stages of progress. And well, I got my J1A, my third rail J1A is back in the shop. That needs a little work. I have my laser cutters coming tomorrow. I got an X Tools S1 20 watt, so I'll be sharing that hopefully eventually soon on the YouTube channel. I have a water tower project I'm working on. It's a Penzi Grand Rapids in Indiana prototype I found in Michigan, and I used my kind of fairly new Creality K1C to print the base for that, and eventually that'll be a YouTube. And God, what else? I got tons of stuff. I got this like brass. I don't know if this will see the light of day. I probably shouldn't even talk about it. It's a brass caboose I found, a Penzi ND cabin car, a little four-wheel bobber. I'm doing some resistance soldering on. So yeah, I stayed pretty busy down there. Plus, mulling over my next Blue Nami project I hope to do soon. So yeah.
Yes, we love Blue Nami projects here.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
yeah. That's fantastic. You're I'm glad to hear you got some new cabooses coming down the pike. No pun intended. That's I love your caboose collection so much. I foamed over it so much when I was over.
I filmed a ton of caboose workbench stuff, and I don't know if that footage will ever see the light of day, because I just don't think I don't know if anybody's really that interested in how much actual work goes into cabooses. Maybe I'll do one day, but yeah, if I'm successful with the ND project here, maybe I'll now that I mentioned it in this podcast, I'll have to finish it now. So, but maybe I'll do a caboose marathon if I saved all the footage. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think that would
I
go over
feel
really
like
well. Yeah, no, that would
I
be a
feel
cool
like it
topic.
would go over. I feel like it would go over pretty well because there's so many 3RL cabooses, but then they're not, for the scale modelers, they're usually not right. And so,
Yeah,
like, you know, being an N&W guy, there's one caboose out there,
yeah,
and it's really hard to find. When you find them, you're either paying a lot for them or you're finding the kits. And so I
yeah.
think a lot of people would find caboose talk and projects interesting.
Yeah, major frustration in 3 rail that you can buy an $1,800 Class A and then have absolutely nothing to run behind it.
Exactly.
You know,
I was saying earlier, I think I've mentioned to Sid and Johnny before, like it's almost finding your Grail caboose is almost better than finding an engine sometimes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, I love hearing about what you're working on. That's absolutely great to hear. Let's go ahead, Mr. Johnny. What have you been up to, sir?
See, here's the problem with us taking such long breaks is I forget what the heck I said the last time we recorded a show. Um, in terms of things that I've been working on in the last, let's say, a month or so, some weathering projects have been in the works. I got an FEF from York last time I was with Sid and John. So I brought that FEF home. I weathered that up. That blends in nicely with my Golden Gate Depot cars. I actually got some books from eBay of SP prototype engines, specifically their Pacifics. I've owned a Southern Pacific Daylight Streamlined P10 from Third Rail for a while, and I've been going back and forth on if they had black rims or if they had white walls. So I actually got a book from the author directly, which was really cool. And they had both, so I tried white walls, and those look fantastic. So that might be another engine that I'll be upgrading in the future. I also worked on I don't think I had this around York. It was either before York or shortly after York I got it. I got my Holy Grail engine, which was the MT4, which is a beautiful engine from Third Rail, and I upgraded that to TCS WoW using Blue Rail, and my God, those sounds are fantastic. Like I'd say they kind of put Blue Nami to shame in terms of the audio quality. There's so much life when it comes to their sounds, and having that engine in the collection, and then also finally completing my Golden Gate Depot Harriman train to go with it. It's just I don't know. There's a level of I feel like it's super exciting for someone who loves obsessing over the details, but it makes you like the most boring person also in the world when you're like, yes, normal generic heavyweight terrain.
No.
And you're super excited about it, but it's just a normal heavyweight terrain.
No, that's what we praise, Johnny. We need the mundane. You need the everyday nothingness. That's what makes a really good, like very detailed, realistic railroad.
So I've really enjoyed that. And then the most recent new project that came into the workshop, actually it perfectly coincided with your video you just released, Norm, is we did a gift exchange amongst the Chicago guys here, and my buddy Lou very kindly gifted me a brass oil column from who's it from? American Scale Models. Looks like it's the people who made this one, and since your video was talking about your water columns, I actually have reference on how I can paint and weather mine to also replace my my wall. Was it who made those? The ones that you had, Walthers, the old plastic ones.
Yeah, those were Walthers. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the Walthers one. So now I can replace those and put an oil column there because I don't have any need for a fuel for a for coal on my exclusively oil fired layout. So kind of brings things full circle. How about I throw the mic over to let's do Matt Z. What you been up to, my man?
Buying too many trains, trading too many trains. I haven't done anything on the layout. I just I tell people all the time. I says once I get going with the layout, I can run a train. That's about all I need to do. So eventually I'll get down to work on the layout itself. But for right now, I've just been enjoying running trains.
The collector's life is your your collector and operator through and through.
Oh yeah, you got that right.
You had some new stuff today, though, didn't you? Like
Yes.
today at least.
Yes, today. Yes, I got some stuff up your alley. I got the dealer BNSF GS4 set. The whole thing. I'd never seen the whole set in its entirety before, so it's cool to have the whole thing. And then I also got a Legacy 3751 in today, and both are fantastic. I really enjoy them.
Heck yeah. Sid, what you been up to, my man?
Always the usual, upgrades for customers and myself. I did my most recent personal conversion was on a very different, or just not very common Weaver model. It's a GS64 for the Western Pacific, and it has the smoke deflectors on it, and it's a very very cool looking engine. I installed PS3 into that with a sound file courtesy of you, Johnny. That's been one of my most favorite recent conversions for myself. And I'm always doing legacy conversions and Blunami conversions for people. Um, uh, Always having videos. I have a backshop channel just for like those like 1 minute clips of just the trains running, and people always like to enjoy that. But um, something I've been actually doing for once is working on my layout itself and doing scenery. I've got my mountains going finally. I've been progressing pretty well, I would say. I'm really happy with what I have so far. I've been so used to a very desert looking, just homosote central layout, and it's so nice to see some scenery finally, and with some rock formations, trees, and weathered tunnel portals and stuff like that. And I also experimented with the ballast and the scenery I'm going to do for my yard area. Um, Obviously, I want it to be cinders, and I can use a mix of various products out there. But I was experimenting with something that I got from my dad. My dad's a civil engineer. He deals with turf design for turf fields, and he has all these bags of the infill. Or it's just a rubber. It's basically just shredded up car tires, and I had a very fine bag of it, and so I experimented with using that as cinders, and it turned out pretty well. Put some other cinders from Woodland Scenics and coal on top, and I really like the way that's turned out. Yeah, I've kind of been all over the place, given that I've actually been working on the layout, but I'm just happy to be progressing with not only my electric projects with conversions and upgrades and repairs, but also working on my own stuff for once.
Heck yeah, man. Great to hear it. John, do you wanna run it off for us here, my man?
Absolutely. Before I do my stuff, I haven't been doing a whole lot as of late. Mostly just a bunch of research on stuff. My fanatical obsession with keeping myself from having to buy lots of models. I love being very specific about what I can find and ready to run. So that's always been fun for me. Been doing a lot of later Chesapeake and Ohio and Chessie research as of late. That's been my. I like to joke. I have like the interest du jour. The whatever's kind of on my plate for the day. I just got like go obsessed into it. It's like, okay, we're gonna lock in. We're gonna look up all this stuff, and then okay, that's on the wayside now. We're gonna go to the next thing. So I just keep it in the back burner for future reference, buying reference. But yeah, no, I got to do a lot. The stuff that relates to what you guys have talked about is what I've gotten to do too. Johnny, I got to come out recently and hang out with you for a bit over the holidays. And my God, man, you're freaking MT. First of all, I'm so glad you got that finally, because you were a man obsessed for a while, man. You my God, you were tormented by 2-rail models everywhere. They would sneak in, just we're 2-rail, you can't buy us.
That March show is torture because it's literally a table worth of MTs.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
And all of them are 2-rail.
Yep.
I remember that.
All the black
God,
ones
it's not fair.
and all the 3-row ones were daylight ones. Because everything
Why?
SP was daylight, Johnny. Just like how only New York Central only had Hudsons, and Pennsy only had K4s, and the daylight and the J are the only Northerns that survive. You know how that goes. You've done this joke before.
The very very run of the mills idea on railroads. Yeah,
exactly.
GS4 only.
Exactly. And Sid, I got to just this past weekend we get to chill and check out the mountain. Okay, dude, pictures do not do that thing justice. It is huge in person. The scale of that thing. It's a scale mountain. It's fantastic.
Right. Yeah, I really am trying to go for that, not in your face look, but just, I want it to be, towering above the trains.
Exactly. And Madsy, I've enjoyed discussing with you all your new stuff you've been getting in. I love that you got the BNSF special. That is the train you got, the dealer appreciation
Yep.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
I had the engine a while back, and I traded it away actually to get the Proto 1, which is what I was after. So it's nice to have the whole set in its entirety. It's a lot of fun.
I love that was that passenger train. I don't know why, for whatever reason. I think my parents just got it on discount. They're like, "Oh, look, a passenger train." That sets passenger cars was my childhood passenger train, of all things. Like, why? And I never found the
So
locomotive. I mean, if I still had it, I would have sold it to you. And yeah, no, but ever since and rounding it out, ever since I got to go to Norm's at the I think it was this year, right? The Palooza this year.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've been and with Johnny too, he doesn't help. Weathering and stuff has just been, oh man, I've been saving so many photos. My weathering album has grown exponentially. And it's just been great. So I've been doing lots of thinking for the future. But yeah, apart from that, just busy through the holidays. We Christmas needs 2 months. Why is Christmas only 1 month?
Oh,
I
honestly.
need to move everything ahead a month. But yeah, so let's jump right now. We've gone around the table here. Let's go ahead and jump in with our icebreaker. And we always like to do this for our guests. We like to kind of throw a curveball question out and just see what kind of happens. So Mr. Norm, what's the one project where you felt like you bit off more than you could chew, if there is one?
Probably that high iron K4. I was just thinking about that. It's one of those projects. Before I was doing like my Chronicles stuff, I made like 3 videos on it. There was supposed to be a 4th, and I was like, "Now there's no more K4 videos." Sid got to see it. That thing, oh my god, I don't know what people do to their trains. I really don't. There's so much stuff that was wrong with it. It was unbelievable, and I had one in the past, and it was actually a pretty decent, okay runner, and I sold it, and then decided, oh, I should get another one, and I got that one off eBay, that 1361. I wanted the 1361, and like a lot of projects, it kind of falls apart in your hands as you progress through it. So you're constantly going back and redoing it. And then I think now that would have went straight to Blue Nami. I would have just like gutted it, cleaned it up, got it running, and did all the cosmetic stuff, and just would have went straight to Blue Nami on that. That would have been a lot easier because it did have EOB, I think, toward the end, and then I think it finally died completely. And I put Electric Railroad in there, and it was kind of a challenge because there wasn't that much room in that tender. And there's a Fat Boy speaker, and it's got the 1361 Lionel sounds in there. So yeah, that was pretty close to like, what am I doing? It's on the shelf. I should put it back on the layout. So, but I got that little ND caboose I mentioned last night. I broke out my new resistant soldering unit, and I had to fix the roof. Number one, the way this caboose is put together is kind of interesting. It's like semi modular. It's a lot of it screws together, and I was like, all right, cool. I fixed the roof, and I fixed a couple things in the body, and I said, let's tackle these end rails. And I ran the resistant solder like tip right across one of these rails and just cut it in half. So clean. It was cool. I filmed it. I don't know if I deleted it. I should save that, put that in the video. But that one I gotta come up with a different way of if you ever saw the ND caboose, it's got kind of like a jungle gym arrangement of grabs and stuff. And this is made with like some pretty fine wire. And probably what I should do is just completely redo it proper, but I don't know. We'll see. This one might take a while to get out on the tube there. I don't know.
Looking to expand your collection? Check out Trains.com. Trains is your go-to place for new and used model railroad products. They have everything ranging from engines, rolling stock, parts, track, and scenery. If you need it, they probably have it. With new discounts being added daily, you'll be sure to find something you like. Plus, Trains offers a newsletter which keeps you up to date on new items, discounts, and upcoming promotions. We've been using Trains for years, and we highly recommend their stellar service. What's really cool is you can also collect points by buying Trains and using them on future purchases. With their awesome rewards program, you can earn points on every purchase that you can use for future discounts. Dedicated modelers can also join their private card membership to get exclusive access to new listings, earn 5 points per dollar spent, and unlock great benefits like no questions asked returns. Trains not only sells trains, but also buys them too. If you got a large collection or are interested in downsizing and making some cash, you can head on over to sellmytrains.com. It doesn't get easier than that. You can find them using our affiliate link, www.trains.com/MMOP, or if you want to use our one-time promo code MMOP, you can get $10 off a single purchase on the Trains.com website. So check out Trains.com and start expanding your collection today.
I definitely echo your sentiment with, you said it was specifically this one locomotive. It wasn't like just a higher end K4 in general. It was this one specific engine was kind of a dog, right?
Yeah, that thing had a ton of problems.
It's crazy. Like, I never understood, because I've said this before, I worked in the shop a few times. I've never understood when people abuse their models. It's like, you spent all this money on this thing. What are you doing?
The stuff they break off too, it's like, man, you had to really try to do that. Or maybe
Yeah.
maybe they were like, I don't know, wearing chainmail gloves or something and just grabbing, two-fisting these trains off their layout, or I don't know what.
I think it was. I think I remember. I don't remember which of the videos on that engine it was. But when you started talking about the running gear, because I remember working on mine when I owned it, and I had some running issues, but I finally got it tuned where it ran pretty well.
Yeah.
I remember it's like there were washers that were like misplaced, and like the drivers must have been out of quarter or something. Like, obviously sometimes stuff from the factory is like that, but like it was so much that I was like, did someone just fully disassemble this and then like come back 2 years later and be like, okay, now I'm gonna reassemble it, and they just put it back together on? It's just like John said, like what are people doing with their models? I encounter this all the time when I'm working on some customers thing, because I'm like, this doesn't deserve like anything new. It's so destroyed. Like
So at one point I had to like take the running gear all apart and lay it out and start measuring all those little spacers and stuff, and found that there were no two spacers that were even the same size. So I was trying to like split the difference, figure out which ones could go on what side, and kind of stack the rods up correctly. It's an okay runner. I think that would run really, really well with Blue Nami. It's running pretty good with Electric Railroad, but it's been off the layout for a while now, because there's so much other stuff has come through as far as new motive power on my layout. So I don't know.
That's a good answer. Yeah, everybody's got that one model. It's just like, oh God, why? Why did I do this? Why was I not warned? But no, good for you for persisting through it and getting something that still works. But yeah, like we said, it's great that we've got these new things that we were talking kind of a little bit about before the show here. Just, we have these great new electronic products like TCS and Blue Nami that can breathe life into these brass engines, which up until now, I mean, we had Electric Railroad and everything and Lionel, but it's almost like they were waiting for this awakening of technology to come and breathe new life into them. So I love that you've been embracing it, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Is indeed. Well, let's go ahead and kind of jump into our main topics here. We're going to kind of just go all over the place here. So, this is the question we always get asked, but obviously it's very relevant here. So what was your introduction to trains? What was the hook? What got you going on it?
Probably like Christmas mid 70s, 74, 75. My dad got me a Mark's Yardmaster set, and pretty unusual gift for a kid in the 70s. Really, I didn't really know anybody else that had train sets, but Mark's Yardmaster would have been one of the last ones they made, and it was a cool little set. It was a work train. It was Illinois Central Gulf switcher, and it had a flat car with stake fences on there, and it had a work caboose with like the little shack and a like a tank on there. It had a manual crane, and it had a really cool searchlight car. And the box was really actually pretty beautiful to look at. Like it was like a picture of the train in the background was like a steel mill. It was kind of like murky and industrial. So that may have had like a psychological effect on me or something. Cause I don't know. That thing was so cool. When you took the box lid off, there was like a liner. And it was like stamped cardboard and it had windows and it had descriptions of all the cars in there. And you pull that off. And then, if your Mark sets, they were always built in those like styrofoam cartons kind of thing, and that was my first set. Had a cool little green stamped metal transformer, and it had like a little panel on there. It was like lithographed wood grain, and it said like it didn't say, it said something like American Railroads on there, and had little graphics. Man, that was a cool set. I still have the cars and the engine, but I don't have any of the original boxes or the transformer. Nothing, sadly. But that was the first.
That box is I'm Google searching it while you're mentioning
I
it.
did too. That's great.
That is so cool because it's not just the fact like the art is beautiful in its own because it's got that beautiful sunset, and the train is displayed in a very unique manner. You usually see like very like, oh, here's the front of the train big and bold, but it shows off the consist in such a clever way. But
I think there are two versions of that box too. There's a slightly different version of that art too. I always want to buy that, and I saw one at York like a few years ago. I should have bought it. It was like the guy only wanted $175. I probably should have snagged it. But.
Yeah, I've definitely had that regret because I've been trying to buy some of the cars I had for my starter set back, but I keep pushing it off. But the windows on that, where like you said, had the little labels of what everything was. The fact it's like a double display is really unique. I don't think I've ever seen another like set that's like that because I don't look into Marks, but that's really cool.
Yeah, you ever see one? Just let me know if it's got all that original stuff. I should probably
absolutely.
Will do.
Yeah, that was the first set, and then several years later, then I got like a real Lionel set. I got the Wabash Cannonball, and that was a die-cast, 242 engine, and there are a couple different versions of that set. Mine was the 79 set, I think. It had like the Conrail Scout size box car, mobile gas tank car, and a chassis hopper, and so that would have been my first like real Lionel set. But I think I sort of semi-retired the Mark set around that time because the couplers were incompatible. So like today, we got incompatible operating systems. They had incompatible couplers.
That's the way it's evolved.
I learned that lesson young. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's interesting. Your the sets you've grown up with here. You have kind of like you've spent some time around like old school Lionel. Like you and I have talked. You kind of went to some of the factories back in the day. Like you actually helped me and Brendan when we were up there. You told us exactly where the factories were, and we went and checked them out. And that was like one of the coolest things. Like, oh my gosh, this is a guy who's gone there and checked these places out. Yeah.
You could drop trains off there at the time for service. There was a little side entrance, and you could drop them off there, and they'd call you. You could come back and pick them up. I think I did that once or twice just to do it, and hoping you'd get like some special slip with your engine that said we worked on it. But
right.
Sadly, didn't get anything. It wasn't really that interesting of an experience. But yeah, it was kind of cool. That was up there for quite a long time,
That's very cool. And so obviously you kind of went from you obviously started like a lot of us do with the starter sets, classic Lionel and Marks. It's funny how frequently that Illinois Central Gulf scheme comes up in 1970s sets. Everybody loved, all those companies loved that scheme on that locomotive.
Yeah. Yep, all those like 92 and 9700 series Lionel box cars because I collected a bunch of those, and yeah, one of those had the big Illinois Central Gulf scheme on it. Yeah, that's cool.
From an advertising perspective, that is one of the most brilliant logos. That's right up there with the New Haven
Yeah.
logo. Like that is a genius iconography logo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you transitioned from you did the kind of the path we all do, where you transition from traditional into scale modeling. Where did that really like begin for you? As Richard Kuhn would say, where did the real love begin?
Yeah, that took a long time because I was into trains as a kid, and it kind of fades out as you're a teenager. You get into other stupid stuff, and it wasn't really till I got back into trains in my late 20s, and then by the time I was like in my early 30s and I had like a little bit more disposable income from my job, that's when the scale stuff started coming out. So at the time, I had kind of an eclectic layout. It was like a 5 by 10 foot apartment layout. It was the first layout I had here in Michigan. And I had like Warhorse sets. I had a little bit of Rail King. I mean, I had the Lionel Phantom, and stuff like that. So it was pretty eclectic. But then I think it was the engine that really changed my mind. It was the first RS11s with Odyssey. So I bought the D&H, and the New York Central one came out right after that. And I'm like, man, these are really cool. And I started running those a lot more. And I think that was kind of the beginning of going to full scale. And when I got my first house, um, when I started laying out my new layout, I was able to do like 081 and I think 090 curves on that layout. And that's when I gravitated toward just like all scale. I think I got, just as I moved there too, I got remember the Lionel K4, the K4 and a half?
Yeah,
That would have
Yes.
been, yeah,
Yep.
really good sounds to this day.
Mhm.
I love those sounds, but
Mhm.
yeah, I had that. I had the Dreyfus Hudson, and I had the J. So all that stuff was coming out. Yeah. And I still had like, like the first Lion Master Challenger. So I was a little eclectic, but by the time I was building my first big layout, the Greenbrook layout, that's when I went like full scale pretty much, And interestingly enough, when I built that layout too, Atlas used to make steel track. I don't know if you ever seen any of it, but it was steel track. It had black ties. I actually had a loop, um, uh, like the center loop was steel track because I wanted to run some of my. I still had some of like the TMCC F3s and stuff like that, but I think that loop maybe lasted like the first partway through the first iteration of the layout, and I took it all out, and I had sold all that stuff off by then, I think. So
Interesting. I probably have seen that track.
yeah.
This is something I always am curious about with people who've used Atlas for years. Did you ever have any of the Atlas roadbed that the track would like slip into?
No, I never had that. But
Yeah, I remember there were a bunch of high rail layouts at the time. I remember
yeah.
seeing, because you would put it on, it would look pretty decent, but obviously actual ballast looks way better.
Yeah, I think it was like a kind of some kind of elastomer product. Yes, you'd have like big gaps in it and stuff. That wasn't
Mhm.
around very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I think like even the steel track was sort of kind of worthless because somebody explained, "Oh, you're not completing the magnetic circuit through the tin plate ties of your tubular track." Whatever. But I don't know if I have any of that stuff left. But yeah, well, if you ever see it's kind of cool looking because it's got black molded ties and the rails are like very bright steel. I don't know what it would look like now, probably tarnished or something. But yeah, I
Is
think it
that
was
what they
like an
used to?
063 loop.
Did they put that in those starter sets they'd have with like the S scale Atlantics and everything? Those were good sets, but man, they were tiny.
I wonder, yeah, that like the industrial rail sets or
Yes,
whatever.
those ones.
Probably.
Yeah.
They
Yeah, there you
did.
go.
I
Yeah,
thought they did make some. Didn't they make some track with built-in ballast? Or I can't remember.
yeah, they
I know
did. They did.
Bachman did. Oh,
Yeah,
Atlas did. Interesting.
Yeah.
yeah. They did a bunch of stuff like in between. the time of like the first track and like the master line like reefers, and then there was some in between stuff before they came out with Train Man too, but like the AEM7, and they were kind of
Yeah.
experimental for a while there. They had like their own little controller for it. I remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gravitated to their track definitely when I built that first layout. A friend of mine who kind of got me into scratch building too. His layout, he had a small layout in his basement, and it was mostly scale. And I remember he had Atlas track, and he had the Lionel J1A, and I thought, this stuff kind of goes together pretty nice. And so yeah, seeing scale stuff run is pretty influential. So there are quite a few people early 2000s that were buying that stuff and getting it out to run. So that's kind of what pushed me into it. And plus, having the space at my new house, I could get those engines to, stretch their legs, I guess.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny. It's one of our topics here. I remember watching the Lionel Nation videos, and
Yeah.
that was the first time I ever saw your layout, and I remember
As
I
was
always
mine.
it was just
Same.
super impressive, and they were
Well,
like
thanks.
the difference between high rail, and
Yeah.
at the time you were basically getting into the more 3RL scale world. I don't think you
Yeah.
had done KDs quite as much.
Not yet. Yeah, that was yeah. I was really happy with the way those guys treated the whole thing, because I thought, oh, they're
Yeah.
gonna say, oh, this crazy guy is spraying gunk all over his engines. They were really, other than, if you ever watch their videos, they're really cool guys.
Yeah.
I really liked working with them. When you're answering questions, like they're actually reading the questions off paper and you're
Yeah.
answering them, but that's the only audio you're hearing is me answering it, and that's why it sounds a little wooden.
Yeah.
Plus, it didn't help that he was beaming one of his like lights right on my face. I'm answering these questions like in a daze. Well, I can't watch those videos. I can't watch myself, but yeah, I can't believe how much of a reach that stuff had, at the time and to this day. Because yeah, I think Sid came up to me and said, "Oh man, I watch your videos." I always get stoked when people come up to me at you. I'm always like, "Man, that's so cool." I don't really think about it like that. I definitely don't think of myself as like a famous train guy. I'm just some dude, But
Yeah.
yeah, it's always cool. Like there's people to this day that are like, "Yeah, I grew up with that," and
Mhm.
I'm like, "Wow." I feel old too, but I'm glad I did it. Yeah, it was cool.
I think I caught you. The first time I caught you at York was around the time, I think, when you were either building or had just taken down the Greenbrook layout, because you had a
Yeah.
couple buildings for sale, a couple third rail engines. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
I remember distinctly this like corner, like warehouse building that like you had shoved in a corner,
Yeah.
with like the rock scenery under it. You were selling that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember your early YouTube videos had the old layout as well, and yeah, it was always just you and a few other guys that I would look at. It was just no one else was doing it at the time, and heck, to this
Yeah.
day, there's still not as many
People
people
were
doing that.
like, I remember that was in Blue Hall. People were stopping and like doing selfies in front of that building. I was like, "Get this thing out of here!" It was kind
Start
of
charging
big
for
and
it.
when I built that thing, I was, I built stuff way oversized on that old layout, but people were
Mhm.
really stoked to get it. I should have asked for more money, but I didn't care. I just wanted the stuff gone. So I'm probably overdue to do another sell off here, but I had a good time. Selling the buildings was kind of cool. I didn't think people would be that into it, but
You see, folks, he's not only talented, he's humble too.
yeah, I
That's
don't
right.
know. Some of those, I was like, these buildings aren't that great, and these guys are like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
You have people walking up to you, just, I worship you.
Yeah, no, not that bad, but it was
Um,
cool. I probably should ask for more money. That's all, but no, I was just happy to get that stuff cleared out.
it's a good
And
feeling.
now replaced
Mhm.
all of them, and I have like probably another batch just about ready to part with someday soon. But
It's important to rotate stuff, especially like buildings around your your layout and everything through your collection, because you feel
yeah,
different things at different times.
yeah, I
Yeah,
had good
definitely.
memories of building all that stuff because when I got into doing scale, I'd go up to Wild Bill's. They're across town. On the way up to Wild Bill's, I would stop at P&D Hobby, and even back then, I knew I was like, yeah, pretty lucky that these two hobbies are within a couple miles of each other. They're in a straight line too. So I would stop at P&D, and I'd always look around, and I slowly started buying my bottles of Grimy Black, and buying like brass strip, and hitting the plastruct racks, and he had a full complement of like Berkshire Valley detail parts, and
Mhm.
so I made do with all those parts for many years, scratch building those buildings, and they had the Midwest. The same people that made the cork, they made the clapboard I used on a lot of buildings, and I still use to this day. And that was really cool to have those two shops right next to each other, basically over there.
Yeah, because back then, 3D printing wasn't a thing,
Hmm.
and um, I would assume that there just wasn't as much of not as many resources, and so
Yeah.
now it's a lot easier. And I assume you're going to use that laser cutter for scratch building and,
Oh yeah.
and stuff like that. And so it probably, yeah, I can only imagine what it must have been like for people who didn't have access to that kind of stuff. It
Yeah.
must have been real tricky, doing probably a lot more kind of like backyard, very raw material style stuff where you
Yeah.
have to fully make it from scratch. And even so, the I remember just the you had this one warehouse or kind of shop building on this one industry you had in one corner, um, that I always just was fascinated with because like the windows, like I was so used to seeing the Lionel or MTH buildings, and I remember looking at the windows and I was like, that looks like real glass.
Yeah.
Um, Probably because you also use that what's that stuff called, gallery glass or whatever, gives that
Yeah.
kind of murky effect.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I can only imagine what it must have been like trying to do stuff like that without all those materials.
Yep. Yeah. I learned a lot in a short amount of time building that first layout, and I still use some of those ideas to this day. But now with the 3D printing, and now with the laser cutting, um, I can make stuff a little nicer, and make more complex parts too. Because even back then, um, there wasn't so many laser cut parts. It was really hard to find like laser cut windows, so you're kind of limited. And as my skills got better, I learned how to set windows into buildings correctly and stuff like that. And it kind of drove my uh, passion, I guess, to find better parts, and make more detailed structures as time went along. But
Your structures and the fact that every structure feels like there's a story behind it and it is a plausible building you could run into while exploring is extremely impressive. And the fact that it's not only each building is well crafted and has its own personality, but the fact you arrange them in a manner on the layout that makes sense and it feels natural that they're there. Like a lot of layouts, and mine included, a structure tends to be kaplammed down somewhere for the sake of just taking up space so the train has something to run by. But the fact that your layout feels so plausible as an actual town is very impressive. And I always admire that about the way that you crafted your scenery.
yeah, thanks a lot. So when I first moved to Detroit, um, I spent quite a few years hanging out, like just going downtown, down to Detroit and checking out. Detroit's known for having quite a few abandoned buildings, and a lot of that stuff's been cleaned up now. But you could actually see buildings, and it was really helpful to see them in their kind of deconstructed state, I guess. But it was really wildly influential on what I wanted to build. You got Detroit, Toledo, because a couple of my buildings are based on buildings in Detroit and Toledo that are still standing now, but there was so much of it. And yeah, I tried to like, even though I have kind of like on a model railroad, you're kind of stuck with, limited space. You're going to do shoulder to shoulder background structures, but I tried to make them look like they kind of belong next to each other, So that's all I was trying to go for. And yeah, placing structures is a process unto itself. If I move a building around, it might be like 2 or 3 nights before I get it just right. I love moving stuff around and trying to get everything to complement each other. And the other trick I learned too is when setting structures next to each other to um, have like similar features from one building to another. If one building has like huge windows, the next one should have like kind of medium sized windows. They should, I don't know, just a might be a little OCD on my part, but I don't know. It's just stuff I try to. My eye kind of tells me before my brain knows if something's right, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I can get that. I feel like not buildings. I think some people are. I'm like this, and I know certain folks in our community are like this too. Like in terms of like crafting a freight train, for example, some people just like just slap the cars together. Who cares if this is next?
no.
But it drives me insane. There's almost an art to it, even though in the railroad there's no art to it. It's just get this going.
Yeah.
But like it needs to just be crafted just a way, because if you put one car next to each other, it just looks weird. So I can get where you're coming from.
Well, I'm sure it's like this for everybody. You're a train guy. You're out in the world doing whatever, and your eyes. If you're traveling, if you're somewhere you've never been, your eyes are always kind of scanning the landscape and seeing, yeah, there could be a track running through there. Hey, there's like a look at that building over there. Look at that, man, that's cool. I gotta go check that out. Or where you see like a old telegraph pole poking out of some trees, and you just start going, it gets the old brain going there. You're like, wow, man, I should try to get a picture of that or store it to memory so I could try to model it.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Did you want to say something, Johnny?
I was going to say, John, I think that you're very guilty of that when you're here, because I think the number one question I hear from you when I'm driving around the Chicagoland area is, instead, you can confirm if I'm correct or not. John will point to something and ask, "Is that a former interurban line?"
Oh yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
No, guilty as charged. I see a straight line, especially if it has a right of way of some sort of electrical equipment. I'm like, that was a railroad. That was definitely a right of way of something at some point. No, guilty as charged. Absolutely. The all fantastic points on what you've said, and it's so. I can echo every sentiment. The most interesting thing for me, like when I was over there, just seeing this world you've built, the hardest thing, like you were saying, Johnny, like making something look very, like crafting something exactly the way you want it, but having it look accidental, like that was the way it just ended up, is very tricky to do, whether it's a train consist or, like you were saying, Norm, a building placement with the windows being a certain way. To make it be very calculated but not look like it is one of the hardest things, and you do that very, very well. The other thing is that, like, when I was there, I kept trying to play this game with myself. I would look around your buildings and be like, okay, I have to find the spot. There's no way he could have put something like on this back little stairwell. Oh my God. Like everywhere you look, there's detail. It's ridiculous. It's like, there's no way he could have put something. He did. Like, you feel like you can go into every single door. Like, you can feel the warmth inside of every building that you look in, or lack thereof. It's nuts, the amount of life that you can breathe into a place. I didn't really think it was possible until seeing your layout.
Well, O-scale really lends itself to that. It's like the perfect size. When I'm doing those interiors, which I never really thought I'd get into, the details really aren't that nice. But when they're all together and they're, the view is limited because you're either looking after you take the roof off or you're looking through a window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think it adds another dimension, and I probably would have built this layout a little differently if if I knew I would have gone this far with the interior detailing, but certainly the 3D printing and the access to like being able to make anything you can think of. Um, it's been really cool for the detailing effort, that's for sure. And then it's just I didn't really expect to go that crazy with it, and but it's so much fun. I learn so much every time I do it. Glad you guys like it, and speak well of it. That's really awesome.
Want to support your favorite O Scale podcast and rock some awesome merch? Well, now you can. We've teamed up with Redbubble.com and have come up with a great selection of gear that you can get right now. They have everything from shirts, hoodies, stickers, mugs, bags, you name it. Heck, you could even get a wall clock with us on it. All this great stuff and more at Redbubble.com. Links are down in the show notes, so grab yourself some gear and rock some awesome podcast merch.
Oh, it's easiest thing in the world, man. Seriously. The other cool thing too is most people when they model a railroad or just the world, they model, and I of course want this as well. You kind of want to model a perfect world, like a world that's idealized, a world that's very like this is the way things should be. You, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it seems like you model things very much as they are. Like this is the real world, the way things do look. Things are run down, things break down, things need to be fixed, things are dusty.
Yeah. I didn't try to make like so I don't know, sometimes when you sometimes you get some people do weathering, they go a little over the top. I just try to make it look shop worn, like like a place that's being used for its purpose kind of thing, and or a place that looks like some work went on, or there's some environmental influence by a train running through and just blowing cinders all over it, and stuff like that. I just and like I said, it kind of developed on its own just from getting further and further into the scale modeling, or trying. And yeah, but thanks a lot for noticing.
Of course, you're saying you
Yeah.
don't like having engines with tons of rust
It's-
spots all over their
It's
running
funny.
gear.
I was going to say
and
that.
tons of
I was going to
mineral
say that about
deposits
the
falling down
weathering.
their tender.
My biggest pet peeve is like, why are people chronically addicted to putting rust on things? Like
Rust
it's
is,
It's the
rust gets a little cartoony. So I'm if you look at photos, and one thing about photos I noticed, I don't know if it's the effect of the like maybe slides being transferred, maybe the lighting of a slide, but some engines will get like a dirt sort of patina over the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
100% correct. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, definitely rust. On a steamer, definitely some of the coupling faces, but yeah, like bright orange red
Ugh.
rust isn't
Ugh.
like, yeah, you're not going to have it on the rods because first of all, if you can
Oil.
understand the amount of oil gets pumped into
Oh,
those
yeah.
rods to keep them from overheating, that stuff goes everywhere. Really what I should concentrate on is more flung oil, and grease effects. But yeah, people think rust, it's like, not
It's metal.
quite.
It rusts.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And it's also
yeah,
painted
That's
metal.
right.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm slowly but surely weathering the New York Central Hudson, and I'm using a lot of reference photos that are from, I believe, very late in the steam era.
yeah,
And even then, like, yeah, some of them are just coated in soot and just like they haven't been
yeah,
washed. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean they're like falling apart. An engine like
yeah,
rusty engines are in the scrap line, not
yeah.
running. Like I love it when I look at an engine and like all the wheels are rusty. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
Well,
that's not
the
how that works.
the scale, the scale, hot water explained it to me too. He said, the scale is from the saturated steam, so you'll see that around the accessories like the turrets
Yeah.
and like the generator and stuff. But yeah, it won't just be randomly all over the engine, and Yeah, rust is actually on a steam locomotive. It's best to use it very sparingly, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Just I weathered this engine and you covered it in rust. You're like, how is it not on the verge of exploding? Like,
Yeah. It's like, I guess if it was in a scrap line, and a lot of times these engines didn't last in the scrap line very long,
Yeah.
because they were being scrapped. They wanted the money for the scrap, but unless it was left, I don't know, in a swamp for like 50 years, that's not what I'm modeling. I'm
uh,
modeling stuff that's still running.
I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
the mysterious J1A that is supposedly in a forest somewhere.
Yeah.
that's
Oh
that's
no, Pitcairn, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah,
I think supposedly got buried under a fill or something in
yeah.
Pitcairn, and I was just reading that somewhere too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, there's that, and there's like a story of a mohawk that's like also like hidden
That's
away
right.
in
It's
somewhere.
in an underground bunker or something. Oh
Yeah.
my
what is
god.
what is this like? This is a YouTube channel. I've shown it to Sid and John before. What is like Gustav time level like storyline? Because it's a guy who does, just for context, it's a guy who on YouTube who does. It's I swear it's content designed for people who are like, let's store it and run on the main line kind of people, where it's like, we found this Santa Fe, Texas under a college campus and they let us excavate it and restore it. We found a big boy in a tree and we restored it.
That's like
Uh,
the people who think that Erie Pacific is still over in Korea somewhere. All the Erie steam people who have nothing left are like, there's still one somewhere. We can go get it.
Yeah. It's funny.
I gotta ask Norm,
Yep.
how did you get into weathering? Like, what was your first? What pieces did you try weathering first? What was it like weathering
Okay.
your first steam engine?
I think the final straw was, I was weathering my buildings, and for a while on the Greenbrook layout, early mid 2000s, right? So, and that was, I didn't have an airbrush yet, and everything was pretty much brush painted. I was doing the wash, and I learned the dry brushing early on, and I'm talking just pretty basic, a lot of that stuff. And I went to this Chi-Town Union Station. I don't know if you guys ever got to see that here in Michigan. That was in Commerce Township here, and they were running like a West Side J1A. If you guys aren't familiar, that was a very large 2-rail O scale layout. And one thing I learned about it was how nice 2-rail stuff actually ran. I mean, they were running
Mhm.
literal 100-car coal trains with a single engine,
Mhm.
and these things went through all kinds of switches and crossovers without a hitch. And these engines were pulling them all over the layout at scale speeds. There was no jerkiness. There was smooth acceleration. And anyway, there was this J1A, and it was probably a West Side or something like that. I don't think it was a Sunset, and it was weathered pretty nice. And I remarked to a guy I was with, I was like, "Man, that engine just sits right going down the track. Look at the way the drivers, everything just." Things don't pop out unnaturally. I said, I'm going to go home and weather my J1A. And so I think that was when I finally really got into weathering the engines, was that I had experimented sometime around that time too on a K-line Mikado. I had the Penzi one, and that was goofy. It came out kind of goofy. I did a bunch of like dry brushing um and but I think the J1A, which is still sporting the original weathering job that I did on it from,
Oh,
Wow.
jeez.
was that 2006? Had to have been 2006,
Wow.
2007.
That's
And
impressive.
that
That's
still has
cool.
the same, that was all um, polyscale colors on that. And yeah, that was before, I do my stuff a little differently now, but I did that with a Tester's Aztec airbrush. If you ever see one of those, just throw it in the garbage. It's not a good airbrush. But my buddy gave me that, and that got me started on the airbrushing. But I always learned not to airbrush and make it look like, do a job where somebody goes, "Hey, what airbrush did you use?" Because then I felt like, oh man, it shouldn't look like you airbrushed it. So I
Mhm.
was, even back then, I dry brushed my drivers and the couplers, and and you tried to
Mhm.
do a little dry brushing to pop out details and stuff like that. But yeah, that was probably the thing that finally said, yeah, I'm gonna weather everything on the layout, and
So it was two rail
That
that did it, huh? Interesting. It's
pretty much,
Yeah.
man, two
It's
rail.
it's
Oh
sad that I say it's sad. It's ironic because of what John and I saw recently.
yeah. Ah,
So I've seen quite a handful of two rail layouts and collections, and they are
yeah,
very impressive when they are put together properly,
yeah,
they run well, and they do, of course, it's scale. And so like the one that comes to mind that I saw as a little kid was the Twin City model railroaders in
yeah,
Milwaukee or wherever they are. um they're that's just it was a very like it was a good introduction, and but
yeah,
it also spoiled my like idea of what all two rail is. On the flip side, there's a museum here in Maryland, the Western Maryland Roundhouse Museum, and they have a decent HO layout, some three rail stuff, and then they have this two rail layout that's been there for a very long time,
yeah.
and it's like seven different kinds of track.
Oh yeah, yeah,
They were running this like I think it was a Weaver, uh, um, what was it like an L1,
yeah,
and it just like it was sputtering, starting and
yeah,
stopping. John, you and I were laughing so much.
there's definitely a
yeah,
gulf between two rail. Two rail is either like it literally looks like it was built by God. It's the most perfect thing ever, or it's this very sort of interesting sort of old Walther's kit. And I know we're gonna get some gripe for this. Listen to me. Two rail is amazing. There's nothing, and I mean nothing. On a well built road with a good foundation and everything, the smooth click clack of two rail running, you cannot
Mhm,
replicate that in three rail. It is
mhm.
so
yeah.
unique to two rail. There's so much unique stuff you will never be able to do within three
I
rail.
got to hang out. I have some two rail O scale friends up here, and I've gotten to operate on some two rail layouts. I think like Jim Botzko's,
Mm,
Charles Root, but he's converting his layout to HO. And at the one time there's Jim Lanzian's layout, and that was kind of like it was modeled on a New York Central branch. One thing I loved about two rail was the intricate track work, and um, that you could actually, it seemed like with two rail you could fit a lot more intricate track work into a small area.
hmm
So I I'm
Yeah.
like with two rail, I'm never say never, but man, to turn this ship around now,
No. I think it's
to
impressive.
convert,
It's
yeah,
impressive to
I
do what you
just
do in three rail.
but I love two rail, and I remarked on my last video when I'm just having my little reflection time toward the end of the video, looking at that big six. I said, I think I could probably get a two rail engine that I
Yeah.
can't find in three rail. Put Blue Nami in it, do battery, and just run it on the layout. It would probably survive most
Yeah.
hmm
sections of my layout, and I don't have to ruin a two rail drive that is arguably probably more rare than a three rail drive.
Mhm.
But um,
Mhm.
yeah, so I do have a Bessemer 643 in my possession,
Yeah.
but if I ever find another one in two rail, I won't be afraid to buy it if I can get it for the right
That's
price.
funny. One of our friends wants one of those very badly. That's
Oh
funny.
yeah.
Um,
You know
Beautiful
who
um,
you
engine.
are.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because I think we mentioned it when we were talking at York. But Johnny, and I go to the Two Rail show in Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, and last March there was a I think it's KTM. I'm pretty sure who makes it.
Yeah.
Western Maryland Potomac. They're northern,
Yeah.
and I want one of those so bad. It's never
Yeah.
been made in three rail.
Yeah.
Um, I've even gone to the extent of working with a friend to draw up wheel sets in CAD to have them cast because I
Yeah.
want one so bad. But the idea of just doing battery power and just leaving it as is, but
Yeah.
using one of the more modern control systems isn't a bad idea because I know my next
Yeah.
layout will not be using
Fast track or
fast track. I'll be
yeah.
using, Atlas or something with a,
Yeah, fast
square.
track's cool. You can build something really fast. That's why
Yeah.
it's called fast track, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I've been able to use it for the most part, but yeah, I'll definitely have a, square top rail
Yeah.
where I'll be able to, run, either the MTH 2-rail stuff or just anything with a scale wheel and not really have any
Do you
issues.
go up to the Strasbourg show from where you're at?
I need to. I haven't. I was shown a photo of a Potomac that was there, and I was like, oh, because
I poached the Cleveland Two Rails show, and I've gotten some good stuff out of there. And there was a guy with, I don't know who made it, but it was a Q4B, and whoever made this at the time offered both tenders with it, like the super long. I don't know, like the
Yeah.
25,000
Oh, I've seen that, yeah.
gallon.
yeah.
It's sold at that show, but I'm like, there's one on eBay right now in two rail at, I think that Townsend models guy.
Oh, Third and Townsend, yeah.
Third and Townsend. Is that's got to be Scott? I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know who it is. But he's got one on there for $400, and somebody has a T3 sitting on there right now. I don't know if it's sold without a tender, and I'm like, I could put that together, but
I did see that.
It's
where
a little
it's
pricey.
It's just the engine.
I'm still looking for one for you.
But the as a 3-railer, I go to the 2-rail shows, and I'll go, hey guys, I'm a 3-railer. I just
Oh yeah.
Well, the March show is dangerous because not only do you have this one going from my first time going to the 2-rail show as a 3-railer, and the best show I knew was York. I was like, all this great stuff, but you have to sift through, as a scale guy, you have to sift through a lot of stuff to find what you want.
You really do.
The 2-rail show, you go there, and with the exception of like the peeling, decaled, yellowed Walthers cars, everything is nice, and it's like, let me go to York and spend the entire show going through all the halls to find one caboose. Let me go to the 2-rail show and find that caboose in 18 different flavors.
Pretty much.
Gosh.
But the fact you can go there and because Tim says his name so much, it's ingrained in my brain. Bill Hirsch sells he sells 3-rail wheels for passenger cars, freight cars, and all just boxes full. So you go there and you're like, it's all 2-rail stuff. Oh wait, there's a guy here I can buy the car from, and then go over there and see if he has the wheels that I need, and then I have a ready to go 3-rail 2-rail car.
I haven't been to Chicago in a few years, but I remember when I first went, quite a few years back, there were a lot of brand new Sunset like M1s and stuff for like $600, and I'm like, man, that's a good, like, the 2-rail guys are a little more grounded with their prices, but I was like, you could get a lot of deals back then. I don't know what it's like now, but I know Cleveland, I haven't run into as much Sunset stuff there, but I have found some good cabooses out of there.
The show in March was it was pretty good. I didn't end up buying too much from there because I had bought something else.
I bankrupted you the day before.
You destroyed us on that trip, Johnny. You
bankrupted me with a Vision Line product the day before. But this upcoming March, I hope to find either Potomac or some CNO Hudson or just something that I can't get in 3-rail. Of course, it's so dangerous for a Pensy or an NNW CNO, Great Northern of all things, and
Reading too.
Yep,
Reading, because there's just all these very specific items, and like the coal hoppers. I have 9 of the Atlas ones. I want so many more than just the 12 they made, and so there's obviously plenty of them there, but like, it's so hard for me to stomach the idea of $125 for a hopper.
I'll tell you what,
the sticker shock there, my God.
You know what? Honestly, I can't believe this just happened because y'all are talking, and Norm, I was literally talking myself out of. I was telling Sid and Johnny this literally, I think, last night. I was talking myself out of a Norfolk and Western Z-Class articulated, this, the little smaller ones.
Wow.
And I was trying to talk myself out of it as like, I'm going to be ruining a 3-rail model by putting rollers, or sorry, a 2-rail model by putting rollers on it. I'm going to just destroy it. I'm not, like, am I going to run it? I'm not going to change the drivers. And then you just had to say battery power. I'm like, man, he got me back in, because now I don't have to feel ethically bad about destroying a 2-rail model. I can have battery power. It's easy. Man, you just gave me the solution, and
it should run on Atlas.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy and sad that you said it, because now I have the solution to the problem, and now I have to buy it again. It's like, oh, dang it!
You can.
That's perfect. That's a perfectly ethical way to not destroy a 2-rail
ethical.
model.
Yeah, I like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because I don't think it's worth like regaging a whole 2-rail drive.
Yeah.
When one of the enjoyable things about looking at 2-rail is how nicely rendered all the running gear is, and I give Lionel and 3rd Rail and MTH credit, though. I mean, for what they've done with steam engines, especially over the past 20 something years in this modern era, I mean, you can run like a pretty big engine, full scale engine on 072 curves, and it doesn't try to kill itself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's some good engineering went into it.
It's impressive.
And some of these drive lines, these Pitman based drive lines, I'm sure even the Canon base would probably run fine with Blue Nami. So the drive lines in these 3-rail engines too, I mean, they're very linear. You don't have to even go do anything crazy to get them to run nicely. So but yeah,
your promotion of 3rd rail stuff in terms of like showing off the improvements that can be done, what goes into one of those models, I feel like has really changed a lot of people's minds on 3rd rail, because brass is a very scary thing, and brass is always that thing. If you're new to the hobby, this is extremely expensive thing that requires constant babying, and that you can't run it this way or it'll explode.
Don't look at it cross-eyed.
Exactly. But the fact you show how to break down one of these locomotives, and sometimes not intentionally as instructional, but kind of kind of showing what you're doing and showing the process, makes these engines so much more approachable. Like, if it wasn't for your stuff, I don't think I would have broken down my MT to put TCS in it. What a stupid engine to start with, to upgrade a Vanderbilt engine that's brass. Oh my god, that was so stupid. But
I think too, when you start working on this stuff, and you get the boiler shell off the frame, and you just start looking at stuff, and you look at like the boiler was all handmade, all hand soldered, and you just if it doesn't dawn on you that, man, a lot of like loving care went into making this thing, man. Let's get it to look and run as good as possible. I don't know. I don't I don't know what to say, because you get such an appreciation for this stuff when you start working on it, and you can understand why it's been around for so long. And I don't know, hopefully, I guess Lionel's doing their brass hybrid stuff, right? I mean,
they were. They're doing.
It's almost like modern tin plate too. You get the same.
It's a good
same
comparison.
Vibe. Yeah. My first 3rd rail was I got the long tender decapod, and that was the first time I really messed with a 3rd rail, and I put the Train America saw board in that, and even with that board, I think it starts the motor off at like 5 volts, because the voltage step arrangement's real primitive and curved. It's got a big hockey stick. It still ran really good, and eventually it got electric railroad, and then I kind of refurbished it on one of my videos I went through, but that would be a fantastic Blue Nami project. A lot of the 4-wire tethered like weavers and 3rd rails from that era. I think Williams probably did the same thing too. I mean, you could get them running very quickly with a Blue Nami board now, and you can keep the constant lit headlight, doesn't matter, but I'll probably do that whenever I find an A5 for a good price.
Enjoying this week's topic? You can join in on the conversation too on our community Discord server. We have a lot of different discussion channels, ranging from showing off your collection, discussing the latest and greatest in the industry, a buy and sell forum, and even a voice channel you can hop on call and talk trains with us late into the night. We're a little over 300 strong, and we'll love to have you join us too. Check out the invite link to our community Discord down in the show notes. Read and acknowledge the rules, and introduce yourself and start chatting. We have a great team of moderators who make sure all are welcomed and respected. So what are you waiting for? Come on down and join us in on the fun, and let's talk some trains. But no, going off your topic about being stuff like being hand built and brass, like engines like the Allegheny. I remember watching that video. I'm like, oh my god, you got it in a million pieces and everything else. And I'm like, I can't believe all the craftsmanship that goes into engines like that.
And the suspension on it too. I mean, they had the front boiler support bearing and all this stuff. And I always try to show like, hey, look what I found in here, like that weird red rosin paper they use. Like it's almost like that rosin paper I have duct taped to my painting bench, but they use this like it's like rosin board, and they use it for shims and stuff. And their wiring is always pretty suspect. So typically my projects are like, as soon as the boiler comes off, all the wires fall apart anyway. I just redo them. But yeah.
It's just kind of, this is one of the kind of topics here. And something I've always been curious about, because our one friend talks about this all the time, and I never experienced this. Was he always talks about how he talks about Train America Studios, and I remember you talking about that in some of the videos, and he always mentions the Train America website, and I never experienced or saw that. And he said there were videos of your stuff on there.
Yeah. Actually, I would have probably been some of my first internet videos. I gave them to Mike Reagan, and I think I actually went to Canfield to buy those boards too. Because he had puff and chuff boards, and those puff and chuff boards are actually like the best puffing ever, because he he had like a longer duty cycle on the motor, and then at a certain point he just turns the thing on full blast, but that was just motor control. And if you use that with a Lionel smoke unit that we used to hop up, I hate to say it, but it was like 20 years ago we were doing this stuff. That stuff worked really good. So yeah, those were the videos. It probably would have been my K4 and probably the first Lionel M1A, because he, at the time too, he was making the modular, what they call the drop-in board.
Like a Cruise M, but it was with the feedback encoder.
Yeah. So I did my J1A. I had a couple of those M1As, and then I did the K4. A really unknown thing about EOB, I've probably never shown in a video. They double head really, really nicely. For some reason, if you took two EOB engines and the gear ratio was pretty reasonably close, they used to MU together really nicely. There might have been a video on that old site of the K4 and that M1 lashed up, but
it was just always interesting hearing our friend just he like almost obsesses over it, just because he that was just like sort of his golden age of his experience in the hobby.
That was a cool time. It was the early 2000s. I mean, I started making a little bit of money, and the stuff that was coming out, you never expected to see. Like, I never expected to see scale T1s. And as that stuff was coming out, I was always kind of a rail fan anyway. I always bought books and stuff. But as these models were coming out, I started really familiarizing myself with the prototypes and all that. Because, I mean, so much stuff came out so fast during that era, even despite like the crazy lawsuits,
that was part of it almost.
The
fire is like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Who's gonna have what?
And then the crazy thing is, like, you expected Lionel and MTH to make stuff, the same thing. But third rail was doing it too. Like
Yeah.
they all did T1s. They all did the big S1,
Yeah.
They all did the
Mhm.
big
Yeah.
S1. They all did M1s,
Mhm.
It was crazy. Yeah.
And it's interesting from a modeling standpoint, just seeing the differences amongst them, because like
Yeah.
with MTH and their J1, the tender is like a Q2 tender, the Lionel
Yeah.
one's really good, the third rail one's really good, and the same thing
Yeah.
with the T1s. The Lionel T1
Yeah.
was obviously part of the whole lawsuit, so it's like half MTH, half S2 turbine, you
Yeah.
know, this kind of conglomerate of things, and so it's interesting from a collector hobby modeler standpoint, just looking at like just what was available and how now you're seeing Lionel kind of come back and do things right, quote unquote.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, a lot of the Pensy stuff was really good, but there
Yeah.
were certain models, a lot of the New York Central stuff that still retained the pre-war like 700E like
Yeah.
guts.
Yeah.
Like the frame was still like it's still like that's not quite right yet.
Yeah.
And so it's cool looking at it back then and then seeing
Yeah.
how they progressed.
What's interesting, if you look at some of the models they built too, like on the Lionel side of things, like the J1A,
Mm-hmm.
the that J3A Hudson they made.
Yeah.
They had mechanical puffing smoke units with like
Yeah.
2 chuffs and 2 puffs per rev. It was an interesting
Yeah.
time. In fact, people, I don't know if you realize this, the early F3s they did, like the
Mhm.
first sets of F3s actually had magna traction, those scale F3s.
Huh.
If you read the box,
Did
but
they
actually had-
really?
yeah,
Yeah, I remember
yeah.
that.
There was a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
weird.
yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of weird stuff back then. That you kind of forget about. But a lot of stuff came out so fast.
Yeah.
And you got to remember demographically. The baby boom generation. They were probably in their prime earning years too.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
these guys were probably moving into bigger houses, and they were just loading up. And you could see it to this day. Those collections, when they break loose, you'll see the amount of
Oh
stuff
yeah.
those guys bought,
It's
and all those Proto 1 engines and
Yeah.
Proto 2 engines with those blown out batteries. That's one
Sporting.
thing I liked about Lionel was you didn't need a battery, and you
Yeah.
always had a better chance of like a Lionel engine running from that era than anything.
It's funny, yeah, the battery thing, because the Lionel stuff didn't need it, but the third rails just came with it in already.
Yeah.
And so I've experienced it. You showed it in your K4, and I think
Yeah.
even a couple of your videos.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll be exploded, or you'll get
Yeah.
lucky where it's just corroded or just sitting there.
Yeah, those are like the world's slowest explosions, aren't they?
Yeah, right.
It's funny.
It's interesting now. We've kind of entered this new frontier of, now that we've had these models sort of change hands sometimes. We've had, Lionel has gotten some MTH stuff. MTH, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do going forward. It's really been cool to see kind of like these, it's almost like an alternate universe of what ifs. We're getting a new we've gotten the new Class A now, from that was one of the lawsuit engines, so we've seen what they can do with
Yeah.
that now. So all these things are kind of
Yeah.
coming full circle, like you were saying, where we're seeing this new age come about of these new models. Like we had the I think the best example, and one of the ones that you were able to work around, was the Lionel what's the Penzi mic, the L1 with the somewhat controversial paint scheme.
The cursed L1s.
Oh, God.
Those things were like, from every aspect, it was like like, I don't know, Mike Wolf's like curse or something. I don't know. Like, Mike Wolf's revenge. I don't know, because it was like everything that could be wrong with a brand new engine.
The paint, the
The
frame.
The stupid, I still go to York. The past few Yorks have been go to Yorks with like a handful of those shims that I printed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for the motors, because
Mhm.
that and the K4s and
Yeah.
even the decapods all have
I
that.
still, and after all was said and done, I still needed Sid's help, because one of
No,
the
the
L1s
board.
decided it didn't like its board anymore, and it whatever.
grenaded itself.
Oh.
Just I'm
Yeah.
out.
I got one of those 2011 K4s that needs a new RCMC and a shim for the motors. I'm like, oh god, it's such a mess. It blew up on me, and I just got to spend the
Yeah.
money to fix it. I'm like, oh god.
You
But
know, it was probably a cheap drive for them to make. I was so mad when they showed up in the I1s, the decapods. That deserved the full Canon,
Yeah.
18-1 or 20-1 gear
Ugh.
ratio. No, I get the L, and I'm just like gritting my teeth putting those on the layout.
The crazy bit about that is, so I bought one of the more recent Russian decapods that they did, and it originally from MTH had the pitman that went into like the tower drive and then went down, which takes up the whole shell.
Yeah.
Lionel modified it with a worm gear. Lionel modified it with a worm gear. So you're telling me they couldn't do that to the I1s or the L1s? It's like oh.
And the I1 was
even
but
and MTH managed to fit like a pitman in those L1s.
Yeah.
And even that little H10 has like a smaller pitman, but
yeah, I'm working on one right now.
yeah, those are cool.
I got one of those.
And I hope Lionel doesn't get that.
It was such a shame with those L1s too, because there was so much potential. You had those cool variations with like the one with the antenna on it. There was so much Penzi modeling potential.
And the price was right.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind that the tender wasn't quite right, because I was just gonna buy him and I wanted to do, double header with him, because I still think Legacy in the 3-rail realm, I think that's the better operating system as far as I like their sounds, other than the squeaking stuff. They can get rid of that. But the motor control, you got like 100% usable speed steps. They play well together in double headers and stuff.
Very dynamic.
Yeah, but but coming up with that gearbox, you can't adjust it. The motor has to. I think it's just got to get set up and tested correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any more of those, that any other engines that were affected, but I got to say the I1s actually were fine. I just didn't like seeing that drive in there.
I think they learned their lesson on that, but with paint color and just reliability, it's like, okay, we kind of have to get this right now, because like these are Penzi engines. Because like Norm, you can attest to this. Penzi guys want a lot of the same engine, like at least 2 of them, because they were so standardized. You can do so many different things with the different variations. Like,
and we only want 2 whistles. They only had 2 whistles.
You could big boy whistle in it.
I mean, you could make one sound wore out or whatever. We're not that bad. But why they kind of lose their mind over forgetting what colors to paint this stuff, I have no idea what goes on there.
This if we could, this is actually a point where I'm very curious about. We have it in our where did the Penzi love come from? Because it sounds like you didn't start out with Penzi. Why was it? Was it like just the availability of the models? What was it for you?
Well, I lived in Pittsburgh for like most of the 90s, so I think I adopted it. And when I kind of moved to Pittsburgh, I was always like, man, now I know why all those train layouts, in Model Railroader and Railroad Model Craftsman look the way they do. I mean, it's like, the stacked scenery. But yeah, Penzi grew on me from living actually living in Pittsburgh for most of the 90s, So, and to this day, if you go to Pittsburgh, there's still a lot of the Penzi kind of residue still around, But, and I did a lot of rail fanning with my buddies up and down, I think like Route 51 and Route 65 up and down the Ohio, through Conway and up to Rochester and back, just chasing trains through there. And, that was just ingrained in me, So yeah, it's like kind of an adopted road. And the Penzi itself is just an interesting road, I mean, I'm modeling, or mostly trying to model a steam to diesel transition era, but I don't have a lot of interest. I read a lot about it, but the electrics, I mean, the railroad had so many different personalities depending where you were, it's just an interesting overall railroad.
It really did, didn't it?
Yeah.
And Yeah, they had so much capital on hand, like you're saying, like the I1s and stuff, or the L1s. They just tried so much stuff. They experimented
Yeah,
like crazy. You can have
yeah.
literally like 5 different K4s, and none of them can be similar, and it's all
There,
prototypical.
I know there's like there's
Mhm.
a bunch of K4s. I wish there was a constant flow of K4s into the 3-rail market space, because there's so many variations you can do just on the even the lighting. You ever see the K4? I don't even know what that little signal light is they put above the headlight. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
Mars light, but I read a description of it somewhere that it was turned on for approaching passenger platforms, and maybe somebody out there knows and can chime
Oh, I
in.
gotta look that
But
up.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
and
cool. They
and
could,
then
yeah.
and just the fact that the reason why I like that crazy high iron one so much is they're the only ones I think that did that. Is that the 110 P70 tender? You know, it's the tender
Yeah.
that you actually saw them with mostly. Where Lionel's doing the shorter one that I think ran with them early on, and
Hmm.
then
Mhm.
probably more common to like Long Island Railroad. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You're talking about command systems earlier. I know you run, Lionel and EOB and sort of
yeah.
things like that. Is there a reason why you haven't gravitated to MTH, or is it just personal
I
preference?
had I had DCS very early on, you know, and I think when it first came out, and I never liked the system that much. I like their I actually thought their engines ran really well in conventional. Like their
Hmm.
cruise control worked really well,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
I think for all the you know by the time you have like multiple command systems on your layout, it kind of seems like you're running like the systems more than you are your trains. I never liked their sounds. I never liked their like the chuffing sounds were very synthetic, and I
Yeah.
always felt Lionel
Hmm.
had the edge on sound, and then Lionel kind of gave up the edge on sound in the early days of Legacy, but then they got better cruise control, and I don't know. I never went back to MTH after that. I always get their engines,
Yeah.
and you know
Sure.
put whatever I want in them, but yeah, I didn't. I never was never really much of a of DCS guy. Mostly because I think I had, TMCC already had like a layout fully controlled by it by the
Hmm.
time by
Hmm.
the time that stuff came out. And the other thing was the sounds. When DCS first came out, I think they had like two whistles, maybe, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Basically.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Basically, yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Oh, a good answer.
It-
Appreciate that.
you definitely haven't, in terms of user interface and experience, have not missed out on anything. If you have missed out on something, you've just missed out on all the grief that we've had to go through of engine
yeah,
not on track,
yeah,
like
RF signal
I've
out of
made it work.
range.
Yeah, out RF signal,
yeah,
yeah, like all that stuff. Like,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't help that so many of the people that we talk with that have those issues are part of like a club where it's like so many different people, different
yeah,
wiring. When it's a personal layout, you can usually kind of fine tune that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
And
you've
then
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and then that being said, I mean, I guess now they have that WTIU, and then Lionel's got their base 3, and I'm like, guy,
Oof.
I don't know, guys, this approach I don't think was the right thing at the right time. The base
Yeah.
3, the cab 3 app, dude,
It's
your
bad.
trains, yeah,
You
your
can,
trains do not run as good as they used to, and that is like a first for
Mm-hmm.
one thing you say
yeah.
about Lionel. Even if they had like the chunky Odysseys, like speed step trains they
Yeah.
were making,
Hmm.
like you could dump that on the track and just start running it. It was
Yep.
like it wasn't
Sure.
fussy,
Yep.
didn't need a battery. Um, the stuff was really easy to fix. Like if you didn't like the chuff rate, you could put some a reed switch and some magnets. If the
Hmm.
cruise stunk, you could put EOB or electric railroad in it. And yeah, MTH, I guess their approach was just you were buying their hardware no matter what. Lionel
Hmm.
was,
Yeah.
and plus their controls were in K Line, Weaver, and Atlas, at the
Yep.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and
It was
Hmm.
third
everywhere.
rail.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they did a good job with that, and then totally changed approach on that now, which is
Mhm.
disappointing. And yeah, the
You
base
can,
3 debacle is like,
But it looks like a bridge. Come
yeah,
on.
I
Better than
loved
a melted bridge.
Oh,
I loved. I think it was one of your third rail videos. Someone asked you about the base 3, and you could strike this part out, but you called it turbo lame. That was hilarious. I love reading that.
I wish them all the success in the world. I just think their big mistake was trying to crash the what is it that I don't even know that stuff, that Lion Chief stuff, trying to
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah,
cram Lion Chief.
yeah.
And I think you could see the intent. They
Mhm.
wanted you to run
Everything.
all the stuff off one remote, and it's like it was too much.
We don't
guys.
need
It
that.
was a bridge too far. It
Yeah,
was a
We
bridge too
don't
far.
need
literally.
we don't need
Yeah.
it all.
People like
And
us, we don't
this-
need
No.
that. It's like, keep it
and
separate.
we have some people that like know more about the the inside, and like
Yeah.
we all love Lionel and for what
Of
they
course.
do. But clearly, whoever is in charge of the I think they might be outsourcing the app development or whatever. It's not
Yeah.
very good. I got to be honest. It's very clunky.
It
Um,
runs the trains worse than anything they've ever made, and
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
that to me
exactly.
is like a first for Lionel, because Lionel's stuff was like known for being really. Some people felt too simple, but I'm like, the stuff just
very
ran.
robust.
Yeah, and I never hooked up a piece of Lionel hardware and made my layout run worse. So that was my big disappointment with it. Right now, it's the base 3 is the cord's wrapped around it. It's under my layout. I'm not gonna hook it up
Mine's
for a very long
mine's
time.
mine's still sealed in the box.
Yeah, you're not
We-
missing
I don't have
anything.
one.
We haven't opened the one for the club layout either, so,
So, and then going, we keep talking about Blue Nami, but look at the way they handle their app. It's you can run it
Yeah.
with one hand.
Yup.
Yeah.
It's very intuitive. And the multi-train mode is pretty neat, whether you run it in standard or the multi-throttle mode. And I
Mhm.
haven't even tried double heading yet. 'Cause
it's
I'm
pretty
waiting.
nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna get another M1 before I try it. But
Have you tried
There you go.
have you tried tactile throttle or outdoor throttle mode yet?
is that? I don't think that's available on iOS, is it?
iOS has tactile throttle.
Tactile,
So
where you just turn on the little vibration there.
yeah, haptics
Yeah.
gets turned on. Do
Yeah.
you this is something that I've seen a lot of people get really get surprised by. Do you use the incremental speed control on iOS?
The versus like the switching mode, or
No, so there
like
is
just tapping the throttle.
Yeah, just tap anywhere on the
Yeah.
throttle and it'll go up by one. The fact that
Yeah.
that very few people know about this
Yeah.
is really
I
surprising
think
to
I
me.
showed that in the H10 video, because that's what
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
what I kind of criticized Lionel about. The throttle is so crappy
It
now.
is
Like-
horrible.
Like literally, EOB had a tap throttle.
Yeah,
You could-
exactly.
You could literally start your engine with a tap, which was, all the credit to Bob Kravachik. I think that's how you say his name. He was the
Yeah,
engineer on
mhm.
that.
hmm
And they people thought about that long ago. And this new Lionel app, I'm like, what do you guys think? I don't even know which way to swipe on it anymore, so I gave up.
Yeah.
I wish they had
It's
just
just-
invested and like just done a new remote. Like, I don't care if it had taken 7 more years.
Me too.
Like, just give us hardware, give us a tactile. You're not going to get the same thing of pulling down on a real physical whistle,
Yeah.
quote unquote, cord
Mhm.
with an app. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
if it's more intuitive. Like,
They could have black boxed all that stuff too. They could have taken
Yeah.
the base 3 could have been a little module that you just velcro to your layout,
Yep.
and I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, when you look at the cab 2 and the base 2, I mean, somebody went crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody
Mhm.
really had a flight of fancy designing that. And when that came out, I actually met some of those guys. I think they had like an outside guy do some of the design on it, and he said, he went through a lot of Lionel's products, and it was always overkill. I thought it was like a little mini jukebox. They could have, yeah, they really could have. And when they announced the base 3 and all this stuff, I was kind of positive about it, because I felt like, well, they got an app, they could do all kind of stuff with the app. You could if it's on a device, you could use stuff like the camera, you could scan your layout. Of course they didn't. I know it
Yeah.
takes money to develop all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, it
And,
seems
It-
positive.
but
I think it's great that Lionel has this sort of young like atmosphere going on. Like everyone there is sort of relatively speaking new. You know, between 1980 and like 2010, there was like a very good group of people at Lionel, but they had all been there for so long, and so
Yeah.
it took them a decent bit of time to change things and evolve a little bit technology wise.
yeah,
But at the same time, I think there's a bit of lacking of like a veteran that like knows what the user wants
Yeah.
and or just what is sort of standard, and so
Bring
it's
people
it's
back
like
down to earth, right? Like just
Yeah,
rein
like-
it in.
they need
Mhm.
Neil Young to come back.
Yeah.
And-
Boy, there you
and
go. Holy
Just
moly.
berate everybody. Yeah. And just come in there. And so I don't know. I don't know if he's got any involvement anymore, if he even has an ownership stake.
I don't
but
think
they
so.
kind of they need somebody to come in and just, I don't know,
Like how they had Lenny
lay
Dean
down the law.
for ages.
Yeah,
past,
like Lenny
you know,
Dean, yeah.
until when he was, he was
and
still in the
even
parts
and
department.
even Mike Reagan just did so much. Like he,
Mm.
because he had a bit of that, hobbyist, because he was
Yeah.
he was a service guy, so he knew about the trains themselves and using them and how they
Yeah.
should work. And so
Yeah.
when you have like Dave is an amazing engineer and he knows what he's doing, and Ryan's a historian and modeler,
Yeah.
and so they know what they're doing, obviously. But it's like I get it, they're trying to appeal to like the young hobbyist,
Yeah.
and be kind of flashy with like the app, like we have Christmas mode for our Bluetooth,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, how could you like you said, how can you get rid of the most basic thing, a
Yeah.
plus or minus for making my train move?
Yeah.
Like that's
Oh.
where Blue Nami shines with their stuff. Is that
Yeah.
that is the definition of easy. Like
Yeah.
that system is so robust, you can take it to any layout, a conventional
Yeah.
layout. Just turn the throttle
Yeah.
and it goes.
Your engine and your
That-
phone. It's all you need.
And that
And-
switcher mode is really cool too.
Yeah.
Oh, have
Um,
you? If you ever get a chance to get your hands on an Android device and try this out, this is something that I'm planning to do a video about this and kind of the stuff that people miss in Blue Nami. Outdoor throttle mode
Yes.
was developed for Android for G-Scale guys because they're like, I don't like looking at my phone. The sun's
Yeah.
in the way. I can't see it.
Yeah.
So you have these dual grids that are about a couple like an inch wide, and it takes up like half the screen. You have a top grid and a bottom grid, and if you tap anywhere on that upper or bottom grid, it'll increment up by one or to go up or down by one, and it gives you the haptic, so you're not
Yeah.
looking at your phone. You feel it, and there's a swipe mode to swipe the speed steps faster. Besides just incremental, and it's great. But we don't have that in Lionel's app.
iOS. Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah, and iOS.
I mean, Johnny, I used it because I'm an Android guy. I used it on my my C16
Little
switcher when
switcher.
I was doing your switching puzzle.
Yeah.
Man, is it good for switching because you can just lock in on the
is.
locomotive. You do not have to look at your phone at
Yeah.
all.
hmm
It's so good.
Yeah. Coming from like the 3-rail operating system environment, it was always kind of confused about DCC stuff because they always called their electronics sound decoders. And it took me a while to realize when they say sound decoder, there's motor control in there too. And,
Yeah.
so yeah, the whole Blue Nami adventure, thanks to you guys too, for like,
Mhm.
encouraging people to try it. I didn't realize how good their motor control was. And it makes sense because they've got smaller drivetrains and, less inertia to deal with and less mass.
Mhm.
And they're probably way more into tuning their stuff, and so it really lends itself well to these larger scale models,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Looking for something different? Need a gift for a fellow rail fan? Well, folks, look no further. NPL Customs is your source for all railroading decor. Handcrafted, made in the USA, and veteran-owned. Their products made for rail fans, by rail fans. I personally have a set of coasters from them that I absolutely love. Find them on Etsy at NPL Customs and use code MMPodcast at checkout to save 10%. NPL Customs, quality since 2017.
And
It really is.
the sound improvements too. My
Oh
goodness.
yeah.
Instantly.
The fact
Yeah.
the fact that I have an equalizer on my train
Yeah.
is like it's when I saw that I'm like, perfect. I can
Yeah.
fine tune it like I do my stereo in my car.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and yeah,
even with like the legacy stuff, if I could just turn off that horrible like
screeching.
squealing and
Yeah,
Oh, the
that
scraping.
groaning,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they even made it louder on some stuff, and it's
yeah, they
like
definitely did.
I think one of my engines that sound will start even before the chuffing starts, even before the wheels.
Yes, it
Yes,
does.
it does.
God,
Yep.
I just want to turn it
bad.
off. That's all.
What was the set they did not too long ago? It was like that celebration set with the Santa Fe post-war style F units.
Yes,
Oh, the
the
120 set.
With
yeah,
the
yeah,
E-Bell for some reason.
Oh
Th-
God,
that
ugh,
that
so
ruined
bad.
that because I was watching someone's video on it and they're doing a running session and I couldn't get over the fact that all I could hear was just the of the wheel squeal. It's like
Oh,
this
yeah.
is I can look past the incorrect bell, but this is just
Yeah.
ruining this engine.
That's so
when
bad.
they first did it on the very early legacy diesels, it was very faint almost, and it
Mhm.
sounded like almost running slow on jointed rail. At least like after like maybe the fifth speed step, just turn it right off at least, or
Yeah,
give us
sure.
the option to disable it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let us
That's what's
choose.
frustrating about that's what's frustrating about the 3-rail stuff. You're just dealing with somebody else's what they thought you might want to
Mhm.
do all the time.
Speaking of early legacy stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe we could touch on this. I know we talked about your videos on the internet, but doing the Lionel Nation. I remember watching like the Acela and a lot of those like the FEFs and all those. Were those all yours, or were those just borrowed for the videos?
No, those were I think the FEF was on loan. If that was actually in the video, was that
Yeah,
I had a weather, was it weathered?
No.
no, it's clean.
Okay. Boy, where did I get that from? I know Lionel had at the time that layout they brought some stuff for me to try out.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think they left that. Yeah.
Sweet.
But the Acela belonged to my my good friend Bob Buback, and yeah, he brought that over a couple summers ago. We had to change traction tires on that. But yeah, that was his. I always wanted to get that set, the actual TMCC one, because
Yeah, with the doors and everything.
yeah, that thing
Sure.
was killer.
It's
There were many threads on OGR about how that thing was an abysmal failure.
Remember seeing it in the catalog? They had the CAD designs. It was like, ooh, this
Yeah.
new
Oh,
space age thing.
It was
Yeah.
it was pretty advanced,
Mhm.
like I said. That's why Lionel of that era, I always thought, man, they never really got credit for stuff like that. That's an incredible model. If you were just a fan of the Acela or modern railroading in general, if you just had that sitting on a shelf,
Mhm.
it's a stand-up model. It's
Yeah.
perfectly to scale, and yeah, just don't go try changing a traction tire on that.
Oh,
Plus,
you'll
they
zinc
melted too. Yeah, there's some zinc rod issues on those trucks.
It's funny, we've talked about like all this, and it's kind of come down to what we talking about, all the tech and Blue Army, and we're almost at the point of this one topic, and kind of honestly probably a good closing idea is just about the industry and the hobby in general. Is like, what do you hope like happens in the near future or the far future in terms of this hobby in all regards, whether it's electronics, just social aspects, modeling, whatever it might be.
Well, I think it's good. I think the future is going to be fine. I really like the fact that younger guys like you guys have brought this out on the YouTube and the social media platforms, and for the manufacturers, I hope nothing but the best for them. I hope they continue to make good models, but they need to listen to the customers a little more.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
Yeah.
I appreciate the hot dog trains and stuff, but can you put the right whistle in the J1A?
Yeah.
Can you make me a J1A, and can you just standardize on DGLE? And I don't care like what road you model, can you come up with in this day and age, can you document and standardize
Yeah.
Color
We have
palette, yeah.
supercomputers at our fingertips. Come on.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you've got modelers that would donate probably more time than you'd want them to, but to help you with this stuff. There's historical societies, but I still yeah, I would like more scale models, as you can probably imagine. I want proper cabooses,
Mhm.
N&W hoppers, that don't cost,
Yes.
$150.
Oh man.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they can retire the diecast hoppers. I was running that train. I got 20 something diecast hoppers.
Mhm.
You don't need a train. They don't need to be diecast.
Honestly, yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
ripping traction tires off left and right. But they have a lot of stuff they can reissue, and Lionel and MTH, I'm sure they will. But and the controls, I mean, I don't know. As you know, I'm not a smoke unit fan. I just
Mhm.
want the sounds. I want the sounds to be correct, chuff
Mhm.
rates to be correct, and more user interface. Like, if
Yeah.
I want to turn my sounds up and down at will,
Yeah.
But it's been hard the past few years, especially becoming aware of all the DCC products that they encoded 90 whistles and they're there
Yeah,
for you to
exactly.
Oh,
use.
it's crazy.
And some of them don't have like the soul of like the early TMCC, like the early 2000s TMCC stuff. They got that
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
They got reverb. They got the random trailing effects. They've got the effects of like the whistle running out of steam halfway through a blast. Those
Mhm.
guys were artists, and you know the fact that you can't hear those sounds anymore in a modern product is like kind of crazy that they would just give that up.
It
But a
hurts.
lot of that stuff was a pure art form because they were capturing those sounds in the field and then encoding them or whatever for playback in a model locomotive, and they did a great job. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I would like to see Lionel and MTH and whoever else wants to participate kind of strive more toward the prototypical, because I think even if you're not like into the prototypes but you like trains, you're still going to buy a train model anyway, and it's kind of a bonus that it's correct. It's like a
Yeah.
little rolling history lesson. And
Yeah.
like for me, I wasn't that crazy into the prototype, but as I kind of got like the modeling, we're getting these models, you'd find out like, oh yeah, they that 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 cab number did exist, and you know boy, somebody really took the time to develop this as a model, so
Yeah.
it's got value in that sense. If you just want to put it on your fireplace mantle and look at it, it's pretty cool. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm not a big fan of the fantasy stuff. I hate it. I hate it when they just do a paint job so bad and so wrong, and they just blow it off like, oh yeah, that's just how it came out, guys. Maybe the next one will be
God.
better.
Oh
Mhm.
boy.
Yeah, we've heard that a few times. That
Yeah.
Dreyfus set most recently was
Yeah, it's
the
like, really? In this day and age,
Yeah.
and
You can just weather that down.
yeah. I understand too. There's a guys that their big fun is maybe they don't have the time to pursue it. They just want to get a train, dump it out of the box, and
Yeah.
run it. And then they feel like, oh, you're criticizing their enjoyment in life. It's like, no, I'm not, dude. I mean,
Well, like you said, it's
I'm
like it
just
doesn't
saying.
hurt if it's correct. I mean, it's like you're still gonna
Yeah,
enjoy it either way. Why not help me enjoy it too? I
You
mean, you
yeah,
try to please
yeah.
everybody, you end up pleasing nobody.
yeah,
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 and you made the one like this kind of came to mind when you were talking is I've learned that being a collector almost fuels the desire to want to know more about the real
yeah,
stuff, and
Mhm.
then you become more of a modeler. I was not a modeler when I
yeah,
first got into just the higher end models. I was just like I wanted to collect everything from
yeah,
1990 to 95 or something. And
yeah,
then I realized like, oh, they did MTH did this, this, and this, and then oh, Lionel did this like
yeah,
perfectly. And so,
Yeah.
it fuels the desire for scale modeling, and so like you said, it's kind of a bonus if that they get it right, and so
Isn't it
I
crazy?
agree.
Like New York Central, right? Like they
Mhm.
made some pretty deep. Like Lionel did the
Oh, it's
L2A.
so
Yeah.
nice.
Some pretty
I
decent
love mine.
Hudsons most of the time. MTH2, a lot of decent Hudsons, and they did what, the L3B and the
Yeah, the
L4, I
L3,
believe.
L3 and
L4 as
4.
well.
Yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, and various Mikados and stuff like that. But you still can't buy like a proper like 19,000 series caboose, right?
Nope.
They
Yeah.
you could still get the kind of the thick walled Rail King, which is based off the Lionel pre-war caboose.
Yeah.
But you can't buy that as a scale model unless you go to the two rail shows, and like I got an NJ International sitting up here in raw brass. I'm gonna, if I ever buy another L2A, I'll
Mhm.
probably hook that up. And I did the Mullet River kit, which years ago I sold that off, but yeah, you still can't go and get like a proper New York Central
Nope.
caboose, you
Yeah.
know. And
One of my big things I want to have done soon is I really want to get a good like ready to run diecast out of the box New York Central Pacific done with correct numbers and font and look as close as possible because you cannot find
yeah,
one. It's all
yeah,
USRAs.
yeah, yeah. Unless you go looking for old two rail models, I think Sunset did what, like did a couple of those,
K5s,
Yep,
right?
did a
right? Yeah,
K5. Yep.
K5. Yeah,
And it applies to just almost all the railroads. It's always, it's funny, the sort of run of the mill stuff that you just see on every branch line of a railroad. You can't buy. I can't buy an N&W Pacific. I can't buy a
yeah,
heck. I can't buy an N&W 480 a Molly. I like.
yeah,
It's just they made them in three rail. Third rail did, but it's just so there's such a desire for it. But then they
yeah,
haven't done it enough or at all, and so yeah,
yeah,
I definitely agree with your desire for more realism
yeah.
and that in the hobby.
Yeah, and if you still want to run it under your Christmas tree, other than it not being painted Santa Claus, painted Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, it's still gonna pull your train, and
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I wish them all the best. I mean, the other scales. I mean, when you look at HO, you look at like the BLI product line, and you're like, oh my god, they got it together, don't they? I mean, you can you can just go on the Broadway Limited website and you can almost pick out like several trains worth of a full train that goes with each other. Like, all the freight cars would match the
Hmm.
era of the steam locomotive. I mean, and that makes me so jealous when I look at that stuff, man. Those guys, like, they got it easy.
And they have good fantasy schemes too.
Yeah, I know they do fantasy schemes too,
They're
right?
good. They're like based
Yeah.
on historical stuff. It's like, what if, an I-5 had been in New Haven I-5 was in Hunter Green? It's like that
Yes,
Yeah.
cool.
sir. I love that.
Yeah. Well, Lionel kind of does that too, but they just, I don't know, they kind of went overboard the
It's a little
past few
much. It's a
years.
little bit much. It's very fun, but a little bit much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not taking away from I'm not taking away from anybody's enjoyment on that stuff. It's just not for me.
Exactly.
It's just,
We can all coexist.
yeah.
Just make our stuff right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, but they gotta listen to the customers. That base 3 is kind of like, I don't know what they're planning on doing with that, but they got a lot of work. I still can't even turn on my tracks with it, right? I can't even address my power
Oh,
masters
God.
with it right now.
Oh, man. This was absolutely fantastic. Guys, before we start wrapping up
Yes,
here, is there
sir.
anything you guys wanted to just discuss real quick or anything else, Norm, you wanted to talk about before we end here?
No, I had a good time though talking with you guys. This is great.
Yeah, this has been great. Lots of
Well,
cool discussions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
For
always like
sure.
running into you guys. Trainapalooza, York. Yeah.
Us standing in that poor vendor's stall for like how long did we do before we
Yeah.
moved
Blocking
into it?
traffic.
Well, we're gonna have the should talk about this year. The NMRA National is gonna be here in Detroit, and
Oh, cool.
it's gonna be right near my house, and I'm on the layout tour for this year. I haven't really talked about it yet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
And I've got
that's
some
awesome.
other little surprises coming this year. Some more exposure three rail, I think will be coming out with my layout. So, but yeah, I'm going to be on the layout tour this summer. So yeah, stop by and see the layout, and for real, and hopefully you like it. And,
Oh, we love it.
Yeah, we can never get enough.
So yeah, hope to turn on other modelers to three rail and show that it's viable. I'm not like the biggest salesman for it. I just like, it is what it is. Yet there's a third rail there. Some people just can't get past it. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm not worried about it. So
It is good stuff. It is good stuff.
yeah, good talking with you guys, man.
Thank you so much
You're
for
always welcome
being on
back.
with us, for
Yeah.
real. We,
Yeah, thank you for
absolutely.
we all think of you as a friend. So seriously, it's been great having you.
For sure.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
We have an amazing community here, and as always, we like to take a moment before the end here to shout out some of you fantastic people who have boosted the server, and you guys just help us keep the lights on here at the Miniature Models Podcast Discord server. We've got SDIV-Tim, Tim's Trains, Blue Comet Fan 833, Matty C Trains, Newt 1969, Commodore Ghost Ninja, The Rambles, Hard Work Pays Off, Dashing Dance Trains, Everyday is Life, and SD70 Train Fan. We appreciate you guys so much. As we always say and promote, it's you guys who inspire us to keep the show going, and we make this show for all of you. Norm, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. This was a fantastic show. Our stop is coming up next, our very perfectly weathered, beautiful train station we're going to get off at here. But if you'd like to get more of us off the air, Norm, go ahead and shout your socials out here. Where can folks find you, sir?
Basically just YouTube, and that's Norm's Trains. So that's pretty much, other than my LinkedIn, nobody needs to look at that. Does anybody look at that anymore?
There's more
But yeah,
than enough.
Norm's Trains. Yeah.
So much good content. Check out Norm's channel if you have not. It is a master class of skill and just theatrics. It's wonderful. Absolutely fantastic. Johnny, where can folks find you, sir?
You can find me on YouTube at Audamus, that's Audamus, where I've actually uploaded a video for the first time in freaking forever.
What?
So, I know. I finally, after all those empty promises for how many episodes now, I've actually made
Who would
a
have empty
video.
promises on videos? No one here does that.
But if you want to check out my latest video, I did a showcase on how to incorporate a Gunrunner John MP3 board into your layout for some ambient sounds and some extra levels of immersion. I also show off the weathered Big Below turbine, as well as the lovely upgrade to Blue Nami Weaver 49er that Sid did for me, and then also the FEF that I purchased from York that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. You can also find me on Instagram at Audamus_trains, where I post a lot more than I do on my YouTube channel. I have actually shown off the P10 that I was talking about earlier in the show, as well as some other clips and photos of things I've worked over the past couple months. And you could also find me at Facebook at the same name as well. But last but not least, you can find me on the Miniature Models Podcast Community Discord, where I am reading and responding to all of your posts and making a fool of myself in the voice chat. So come on down. It's lots of fun.
I always love your social read off, Johnny. It's so fantastic.
I always have, ever since the one episode where I fumbled how to spell my own name, I always have to have my name in the bottom corner so I can read it out so I don't look like a complete idiot.
Oh, it's fantastic. Matt Z, where can folks find you, sir?
You can find me on YouTube under Matt-Trainlover9943. Instagram Matt's.hobbies, and if I remember to post on there, I have a Facebook page under the same name as my YouTube. And like Johnny said, always on the Discord server, having a good old time in there. And Norm, thank you very much for being on. Fantastic episode, and definitely want to have you on again.
All right.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
You were
Anytime. And Johnny, that Big Below turbine, whoever traded that to you is a real jerk, you know.
God, I hate him. He just leaves he leaves the office smelling like anchovies and coffee all the time. What a disgusting combination.
I know, man.
I'll just run some smoke units.
There you go. Use the black liquor, send the smoke floor, right, Johnny?
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna cinnamon roll JT's, get by the bucket full in there.
Makes me hungry every time. I can't stand it.
If I light off a smoke unit, my wife will smell it from months. So that's one of my many other reasons for not running smoke. But nothing against it, just not of my stuff, you know.
Exactly.
I feel it. I feel it. Oh man. Yes, insert Matt Z food joke here.
Yes, sir. You know it. You know it.
I love it. Ha ha ha, fish man. Oh my gosh. And Mr. Sid, where can folks find you, sir?
You can find me on YouTube under Sid's Trains. I have not made a video in quite a while, but there are some things in the works, and I'm always doing things. I'm posting on Instagram as well under the account Sydney's Trains. I post a lot about just reels of trains running, some layout work, and things like that. And then I never mentioned this channel actually. I actually have I call it a back shop channel of just me running things I've upgraded. Sid's Back Shop is what it's called. Those are just like 1 minute, 2 minute clips of trains running that I've upgraded. And you can also find me on Discord, on the Discord server under Sid's Trains as well. I'm always chit chatting with people, and it's a great time there on the Discord server.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place. We have a lot of fun. We've got a great community we've cultivated, and we try to keep it respectful for everybody. We have a good space for you guys to have fun and just discuss with all these fantastic people that we know. And you can find me in that Miniature Models Podcast Discord server as well with my wonderful co-hosts and our mod team of which Sid is a part of. We have a great place. If you're not a fan or you're not a member yet, why not? Come on in. We've got fantastic stuff. We're going to get some exciting new things going this year. So definitely be sure to follow us on all of our social media, on Facebook, wherever you subscribe to us, on Podbean or through YouTube. And even our Instagram page. We got the Miniature Models Podcast, the special content there with the traveling, our ambassador Alco PA Diesel, which is going to go to some fantastic new places this year. And last but not least, you can find me, John Schwartz, at RetroMikado96 on Instagram and RetroMikado on YouTube. I have not posted for a bit. I've been a bit busy with life stuff, as we all have, but I'm going to get back to posting real soon here, get you guys caught up on stuff. And we're going to get ready for another fantastic year here at the show and just in our community. So we're looking forward to it. Can't wait to see what the future holds here. And as Norm said, we wish all the manufacturers and all you guys all the best in the coming year. We can't wait to see what it holds. Norm, hopefully we're not gushing. Thank you so much again for being with us tonight, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Pleasure was mine.
Thank you very much, Norm.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody else. Y'all have a great night. Wishing you, as always, green boards and dry rails.
Take good care, everyone.
Take
Take
care,
care, everyone.
everybody.
Good night.